Hey everybody, I want to do this video today because with all the press around Captain Marvel being released this week, something interesting happened that I think is being overlooked and is definitely worthy of discussion. I should preface this by saying the geek in me loves to go on the weekends to the movies, enjoy a show, but the nerd in me loves to follow up on Monday, check Box Office Mojo, and analyze how the movie did and make predictions on what I think is going to happen, what I think the studio is doing, and just follow up in a general sense on what's happening in the industry. And that's really another thing that prompted this video. So this weekend, thanks in huge part to the international box office, Alita, Battle Angel, crossed the $350 million mark. Now this is interesting because with a budget of 170 and let's figure about 30 million for promotion, this movie so far has made at least $150 million. Now this is interesting because everyone was calling it a flop when it first came out. However, with that kind of return, we have some interesting questions arise of whether or not we're going to get a sequel. Now, I did a review of this movie on another channel, and I won't get too much into that, but suffice it to say, I enjoyed the movie. I thought it was well made and well acted. There were certainly some issues. It wasn't perfect by any means, but I enjoyed it, and I personally would like to see a sequel. There's definitely enough source material for that. Easily a sequel, if not another two movies at least, based on the manga. Now, a little bit of background about the movie to kind of provide some context to this discussion. Alita was originally a manga and then made into an anime, which James Cameron saw, and Cameron loved the movie apparently, and he wanted to turn it into a live-action movie. Unfortunately, at the time, the technology simply wasn't there to capture his vision. Now, this was decades ago. More recently, he started the project, but then got sidetracked with the Avatar movies, and so Robert Rodriguez took over and directed the movie for him. The movie is almost a shot-for-shot reenactment of the anime, which is the first several books of the manga series, so there is still plenty left to make a sequel, and as I said, possibly even two movies out of. Now, this is important for our discussion because I think there are really two conditions under which we could see a sequel. Condition number one is that it makes so much money that the studio just can't say no to it. I think we're getting there. I think it might have to hit 400 million to guarantee it. 350 million is certainly up there, and it might be enough on its own to do it. And it may or may not hit 400. It's really hard to tell. It's been a couple of weeks now. I think it's run its course in most of the major markets. But it is still possible it could pick up another 50 million. Now, again, that's just for a guarantee. It may have enough already to do that. Now, there's another condition under which a sequel could be made, and that is James Cameron, with his Avatar sequels, could, in addition to the money this has made, make enough money off of those two sequels that the studio feels obligated to let him follow up on this movie. So we have a movie that's done well on its own, and the chance of a sequel losing money, I would say, is very, very low. In fact, most likely it'll make at least some money. So that's part of it. And then you have the James Cameron aspect of it, where we've got a director that two of his movies alone are the two highest grossing movies internationally of all time. Between Titanic and Avatar, you're looking at $5 billion. So since the movie has done well on its own, I think it's safe to say that as long as Cameron still wants to continue this project and back it, I think it's safe to say that the studio is going to fall in line. I think they're going to let him continue to do a sequel, and I really hope that Robert Rodriguez continues to direct. I think he's got a really good eye for the action, for the story. But not only that, I'd really like to see where he takes it without the visuals from the original anime. I think continuing the story to the conclusion would really be interesting and allow him to play more with the story than what this movie has let him do. So that's why I think a sequel will be made. Now, beyond why will it be made, the other question is, why do I want to see a sequel? And there's a couple of reasons for that. The first, as I mentioned, is I really want to see Robert Rodriguez unleashed. I want to see what he can do with a big budget and no constraints to the source material, at least the visuals of the source material. And maybe have a little more input into the script and into the writing. I think that was one of the weaknesses of the last movie, and I think if he has a chance to have a little more input, we may see a better story. Along those same lines, I also thought the other really weak link in the movie were some of the characters that, for very specific reasons, will not be able to continue into a sequel. And so I would like to see what happens without those characters, who I thought really drew the movie down. Another reason why I want to see a sequel may be a little contemptuous on my part, but I've got to be honest, I'm frankly getting tired of the critics giving horrible scores to decent movies. If we check out Rotten Tomatoes right now, Alita scored a 59%. And as I said, it's not a perfect movie, and I acknowledge that. But it's not a bad movie either. I would say it's definitely good, definitely worth watching, especially in the theaters. And if we look at the audience score is 94%. So there's a huge disassociation from the critics' score and the audience score. And frankly, I'm just tired of the sanctimonious critics who are so out of touch with the mainstream that they just can't enjoy a movie for what it is anymore. And we're seeing this more and more nowadays, where these critic scores are just so off base with the actual audience scores. And in the end, it's the audience scores that makes the movie money. The critics are proving that, frankly, they're irrelevant. People are going to movies despite bad scores, and not going to movies despite good scores from critics, because they know that the critics' scores really aren't in line with their own ideals. And I think a sequel would be kind of a middle finger to those critics. So in recap, do I think there's going to be a sequel? Yes. I think the movie has proved itself on its own merit. I think James Cameron is going to stay with the project, which will, at the very least, force the studio to stay in line and to back it. And Robert Rodriguez has actually come out and said he wants to do a sequel, if not multiple pictures. So there's definitely a backing there. And I think it's pretty safe to say that, unlike many of the other movies based on anime, the film has gone beyond the anime community and has really captured the general audience. And I think that speaks volumes in just its domestic haul alone. It's currently, I believe, up to about 75 million in the US, which is pretty good given the type of movie that it is. By way of comparison, Ghost in the Shell, I believe, only made about 40 million in the US, so this has almost doubled that. So let me know what you think. Does the movie deserve a sequel? Is there anything that you want to see different in a sequel? Should Robert Rodriguez come back to direct, or should it be open to somebody else? Leave some comments, let me know, and let's have a discussion. I'm very curious to hear what other people have to say. And if you like the video, make sure that you like it, that you subscribe to the channel, you know, all that, blah, blah, blah. And I'll get back to you again, hopefully soon, with a Captain Marvel report.